yesterday in the winners side of the bracket. So, yeah, looks like with his accomplishments and his deck, he's doing very well. He's an established player. He's been around the block for many years. These are just 4 of the more recent achievements that he has got. He's a Madrid champion for the SPE, and a Switzerland national champion back in 2016 before we moved over to international tournaments. He's got an Anaheim Open top 8 placement, as well as a top 32 at Worlds in 2018.
And that does, of course, mean Luca is the reigning Switzerland national champion and probably will be for some time yet. Alexander Weber has had some more recent accomplishments, but showing off there that 2013 was an absolutely banner year. That was a pretty good year. Playing that fire archetype with Blacephalon, Reshiram, and Charizard, lots of fire tricks. It's a deck we didn't see on the stream yesterday, and I do need to mention we are in winners round 7 here, so as we head on over into the game, we need to bear in mind that, well, the winner of this game is going to be headed straight to the global finals. Loser goes into the losers bracket, is still alive in the tournament, but we are going to be putting somebody into the global finals in this game.
So absolutely a huge game, as you say, with massive stakes. Alexander, he's basically playing the sort of smash and grab welder, take the prizes as they lie kind of deck. You've got your Cramorant, you've got your Blacephalon for big blow-up damage if you are able to accumulate a hand size. You've got early aggressive Reshiram and Charizard, as well as Heatran GX. So plenty of things for Luca to be playing around, who is just going to be using the ADP Zacian. Looks like, I can only imagine Luca won the coin flip and has forced Alexander to go first. Typically, you expect the welding decks to kick off the games going second so that they can get welders and big burst damage. So Luca identifying the matchup early and choosing to have a supporter to kick off his turn.
Absolutely. I mean, a welder and a switch would actually have led to a KO on that Zacian last turn. So, yeah, that would have been a very bad start. And Luca is on the back foot here. An awful lot of his deck is weak to fire. You know, that Heatran, free energy, 130 damage. Generally speaking, that is reserved for those smaller single prize Pokemon. But it can get a one-hit KO on an Aegislash, on a Zacian V. It can get a KO on these Pokemon. So we do just see a Professor's Research coming down. And Luca is going to need to have some fast turns here, some big KOs, because what you cannot do here is just take a couple of turns, set up a couple of Zacian, because Alex's fire deck is going to absolutely run through them. You need to get that GX attack off. You need to hope that there is no response on that ADP with something like a Blacephalon, and then you need to get yourself a couple KOs and kind of run away. You start this game on the back foot if you're Luca.
Absolutely, but he has drawn into one of his key cards for the matchup. He's drawn into his one-of copy of Chaotic Swell. As you do see, he's just going to have a quick look through his prize cards, see what is accessible to him. Looks like he's just going to be ending on the Attachment and Intrepid Sword. I can only imagine he'll go into his ADP into the active, because that Zacian is a little bit vulnerable thanks to its weakness to fire. So he's going to bring ADP out into the fray, and we are going to see the Intrepid Sword here. Doesn't have much to work with, so this is actually a big 3 cards here. Picks up to Dene GX. That's really solid.
Yeah, that's not too bad. And this is not one of those games where you worry about benching a Dedenne. Dedenne is no more, in fact, is less vulnerable than something like a Zacian. Zacian is going to be easier to KO than Dedenne, so that little 160 HP 2 prizer, not a problem. Speaking of which, hey, it's that little 160 HP 2 prizer giving Alex a new hand of 6 cards.
Surprisingly, we're seeing the Cramorant V get discarded. Typically, you'd associate Cramorant as being a decent option in this deck because it can be a finisher on Dedenne GXs, but Alexander just getting rid of all of that. A couple of Fire Crystal and Giant Hearths hitting the discard pile. Alexander does play 3 Giant Hearth, so he knows that the third one that he does find will actually be the thing that sticks in play at this stage. So happy to just throw one of these away now. He's got a few quick balls, does play for the full 4 complement of Pokegears in his deck, so he's able to pick out a welder here. And let's see if he can find themselves a switch out. He plays 4 switch as well as 4 copies of Scoop Up Net. And we are finally seeing a welder here. So we'll be attacking with Heatran by the looks of things. So must have switch in hand. Otherwise you don't weld a 2 to Zigzagoon. Actually, you can put 2 there and then still pay retreat and still get the value from Heatran. But instead throws 4 to the active. Going to use the Steaming Stomp, and he's hoping that he's in range with his Hot Burn GX attack next turn. So a ton of pressure from Alexander there.
Yeah, that was a very nice turn from Alexander. It's all he really needed. Take advantage of Heatran's ability. When you switch it into the active, you can move energy over. That's how it got from Galarian Zigzagoon onto Heatran. It's got a GX attack that does 50 damage for each fire energy attached to it. So it's actually threatening 250 damage without weakness next turn. So if Luca uses a GX attack here, it's going to give up 3 prizes. If he attacks with Zacian, he's got a, well, essentially 110 HP Pokemon that gives up 2 prizes in the active. Does play a Morile here? Can he force anything onto the bench? He can, but do you really want to? They're both pretty good attackers.
I think you want this in play just to, wow, what an insane hand Alexander sat on, to be honest.
Nuts.
Yeah, there is some argument to put down the Reshiram and Charizard, because when you play Rusted Sword, you can actually one-hit KO that post-GX attack, but he's going to force down the Blacephalon. It's less likely to just come in and punish you with Double Blaze GX. But basically, Luca knows that he's staring down a backup Welder and a Giant Hearth coming into play. Pretty much the perfect hand. And yeah, that's awkward to deal with. He has picked up his first Metal Saucer. He at least knows he's not staring down any Boss's Orders plays. It's basically only going to be Heatran attaching to the active, welding to the bench Blacephalon by the looks of things. So Luca's going to have to try and set up basically 3-turn win here, where he's going to GX, he's going to try and get through the Heatran, he's going to try and Boss's Orders after the fact. He is going to try and research here, just get rid of his hand. He needs to work towards more Metal Sources and more energy drops here.
Well, he does have an energy switch in hand, and I don't think he's used the energy attachment this turn. I could be wrong about that. So there is an argument to put down the ADP, energy switch onto it, and then maybe try and get a GX attack with a new ADP, just to make it much more difficult for Alex to get the KO. Still would get the KO with a Welder GX attack, but really just kind of force it.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that play, especially now that the Cramorant's been discarded, so the damaged ADP would be difficult to access. So a cool play that was still open to him, but now that door's shut. The ADP, the secondary one, now just hits the discard pile pre-research. There is an energy drop for Luca, so we could see simply going into the ADP, we can see an energy drop onto a Zacian by the looks of things, and then just a GX attack here.
Absolutely. And the GX attack is going to come out. What I worry about here is that you're allowing Alex to get a KO without having to welder onto the Heatran. So now Alex is going to be able to welder onto, say, the Blacephalon on the bench. And when you're playing these fire decks, anytime you can welder not onto your active or not onto the Pokemon with which you're attacking this turn, that is absolutely huge because it gives you access to another supporter card the following turn. And that is exactly what we see. Welder onto the Blacephalon, drawing 3 cards. We do see the KO with Hot Burn GX, and now Alex is just 3 prizes away from victory.
Yeah, really nice. He's set himself up with a Blacephalon in the back. Luca does not play much hand disruption. He just plays 2 copies of Marnie, no reset stamps whatsoever, and his Celtic Swell is already used, so not many ways to slow down the opponent at this stage. You're hoping that you can just take your Morwile KO, and then you're looking for sources and bosses to finish off the Dedenne GX. He can still win in 2 turns here, let's not forget. So he's kind of on the back foot in the fact that he needs to draw a lot of cards, and he's currently not sat on much, but he can go Morwile here, and then he can just go for Professor's Research, hoping to set himself up for sources and other plays here. Well, basically next turn he needs Sorcerer Attachment, Boss's Orders.
Yeah, and I like it, you know, like you say, it's absolutely open. Because you've used Altered Creation, even though you gave up 3 prizes to do it, if we see both players doing what they want to do, Luca will actually win this game. One of the reasons you don't put down that second ADP and you do give up the KO is to stop Alex potentially being able to take 2 KOs and win the game and essentially get ahead in terms of how many turns you need to attack in order to win. So I do quite like this. I think not benching that second GX, there is a definite advantage, but it is now down to Luca. Got to get a KO with a Morile, then got to get a KO with Zacian next turn. If he doesn't, you've got to think it's going to be the end. But we do see that there is actually everything needed for the KO next turn already in hand.
Yeah, the only fear factor is if you play this Sorcerer, that if Alexander has his one-off copy of Boss's Orders, it's actually not super unlikely, even though it's just a 1 count, because there are 4 Pokegears in the mix, so he may need to hold everything. Alexander does not play any hand disruption, so you just hold your hand as it lies, and hope that Alexander does not have a boss's orders with Blacephalon here, so that Morwile is no longer able to deal enough damage into the Dedenne GX.
And that is one of the downsides, of course, of, letting your opponent have that welder onto the Blacephalon. It opens up a boss's orders because you don't need to use a welder anymore. So you've got access to boss's orders. And yeah, the good news is, having said that, Luca's actually got 2 Metal Saucer in hand now, plus an energy, plus a boss's orders. So I'm fairly sure that's game for Luca.
Yeah, this looks locked up to me because he already has the air balloon on the backup Dedenne. So even if there were any boss's orders plays here, he would have been completely safeguarded around that. So, based on the hand, he can just go ahead, promote anything but the Zacian with the energy, just do his saucer plays, boss's orders, and that's going to be a swift game 1 here. Really fast-paced play from both players.
Absolutely. Very, very well played as well. I adore how Luca's played this game. It is not a good matchup. It's not a matchup you want to face. But Luca here is just going to retreat the Dedenne, pop the Zacian active. He's going to click that Brave Blade attack. Crobat goes down for 3 prizes because of the Altered Creation GX. And Luca is going to take a pretty nerve-wracking game 1. It was not exactly a decisive victory. His opponent had 1 prize card remaining. He needed a very specific combination of cards to do it. But hey, he had that combination of cards and takes a 1-0 advantage in the game.
Yeah, very nice to see. I think you get to see exactly why Luca chose to go second in that game, because essentially Alexander just had to spend a turn attaching to a Heatran, and typically tempo's the name of the game for the Welder deck. They want to be smashing early, getting damage, even if it is onto an ADP, or if you are able to take that 2 prize knockout on the Zacian before there's a GX attack from the ADP, that's when you start flying ahead as the fire deck and just churning attack after attack. But it turned out that Luca choosing to go second was the better outcome for them. They were still getting that turn 2 GX attack off. They were able to dig through their deck, find enough metal sources, use their Morwile GX very well also, forcing something down into play to allow you to do more numbers into the Heatran to actually reach that KO. So yeah, some really cute decisions from Luca. Also found their Celtic Swell at the right time, which is always a good thing in this matchup.
Yeah, it's just a beautifully played game. Little things like you said, holding that Metal Saucer rather than playing it, because if you do play it, there is a small chance that your opponent KOs the one with too much energy on, and then you don't have that energy. So I think Luca played that game absolutely brilliantly. Let's head on straight over into game 2 then. I still don't think Luca is the favorite in this game. You don't want to be playing against a deck that's got type advantage over you. That's never a great place to be. But Luca just showed us, look, I'm in winners round 7 for a reason. I haven't actually lost a series in the Players' Cup yet, and I know how to navigate this matchup.
Yeah, showing everything in that first game. For Alexander, able to go second now, forcing Luca to go first. Never a bad thing. Luca has a pretty good start. The Big Charm can make it more awkward for Alexander to go for those Heatran GX plays that we saw in that game 1. So again, timely to find that one-of copy in his deck. Also able to establish a Zacian before going ahead and using a Dede change here. So everything he needs already turn 1, and he's looking to establish a bigger hand size for that turn 2. He could be ending on a 9-card hand here.
This is a really good... bearing in mind you're not allowed to play a supporter card or attack going first, which really limits your options. That is a very, very nice turn 1. And, Luca, we saw, chose to go second game 1, didn't want his opponent to go second, has to let his opponent go second here, so goes, right, well, if I'm going to have to go first, I'm going to have a redonk turn 1. Alex, however... Can he do it? We know these fire decks can have an explosive turn 1, pun intended, if they're going second using that welder card. So how much can Alex actually get done this turn?
Well, based on the first few actions, lots. I think the early quick ball getting rid of Dedenne, we've already seen there's a welder that's found its way into the hand. We've also seen a Crobat V pickup for Alexander. So trying to either Stellar Wish towards Giant Hearth here, or just lower the hand size. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be holding a welder in hand, Crobatting for 5, then we have Stellar Wish to try and find that Giant Half to really get rolling here for damage. Naturally draws into some fire energies, so Heatran's going to be coming in swinging with that Steaming Stomp this turn.
Yeah, there's always that tiny outside chance that you can get free energy on the Blacephalon using Welder, and then it would need to be 7 energy in hand to get a KO with Blacephalon. It's not really realistic, so we see a slightly more restrained plan here, going into that Heatran energy attachment for the turn. And 130 damage is nice because it's exactly like we saw last turn or last game. It means that the GX attack can come in and get a pretty easy KO next turn. Luca will get the GX attack off before the KO, so honestly right now we are seeing the game go very, very similar to game 1.
Looks like the Morwile going to be coming in again. Luca receiving the bad news that there's a backup welder in hand. This time also potential to go ahead and refill with the Dene GX. Does actually have the benefit of Giant Hearth here, so he can get activation of his Metal Saucer. Then he can attach to his ADP into the active. He can get that free attachment and can choose to go ahead and use Professor's Research. I feel like you may have eyed up something like Skylar for Chaotic Swell, but when you know Alexander is already holding on to the welded double fire, that's not going to be quite as useful. So yeah, nice activation of the Giant Hearth there, using it to your advantage. Get that attachment. All 4 Saucer are in the deck, so really important to make the most out of all of these cards. And now at this point you can see Luca looking through his deck, seeing what outs he has to make that Boss's Orders play count again, because there's two prize Pokemon on the field already. His prize map is pretty simple. Try and deal with Heatran, try and deal with Crobats. That's the path he's going to try and take this game.
It worked in game 1. There's no reason it can't work here as well. And again, we're in that situation where, assuming both players get to do what both players want to do, Luca wins in 3 turns, including this one, and Alex wins in 3 turns, including next turn. So Luca is still, in terms of how many turns it takes to win, assuming everything goes exactly as you want it, Luca is at a little bit of an advantage here, but he needs everything to go perfect. He needs a Boss's Orders at the right time. He needs to make sure he can power up those attackers, hit those metal sources, things like that. It is not always easy. When people talk about theoretical matchups, they always assume everything's going to go perfect. Not always the way.
Yeah, and this time, thanks to the Big Charm, it does force Alexander to only get 1 attachment on the Blacephalon this time, so less likely there's going to be scary Boss's Orders players involved. I'm actually kind of surprised we didn't see Luca use Quick Ball last turn and have a bigger dig into the deck. Actually chose to hold on to this Marnie that he's going to be using this turn. Because Alexander only has a Blacephalon in play, it's going to work out great for him by the looks of things. Especially if he can find... Wow, there's a Metal Saucer. So he's got everything. And he's also got Crobat to refill as well for next turn. He wants to still probably play, possibly even switch and Crobat this turn so he can draw the most for Boss's Orders. Because he still needs Metal Saucers on top of this.
He does. I mean, you're right. This KO is fine, but we need the other KO. We need 2 energy onto a Morile, potentially, probably 3 energy onto a Zacian, and a Boss's Orders. That's a lot to ask for, especially without using your supporters. So that first KO from Luca, it's absolutely in the bag, but Alex is generally going to have an easier time building up those attackers than Luca is, because Welder is fantastic.
Yeah, we're really just hoping from Luca's side that Swell Marnie is enough of a combination to keep this Zacian from getting KO'd, because right now his hand is not established for any Saucer players whatsoever, so it looks a little bit dicey. In the worst case scenario, if there is going to be a big KO from Alexander here, the hope is that you can just respond on the Morwile and then hope that there's nothing coming back into you from Alexander. But as we see Cherish Ball coming in from Alexander, plays a really quite unconventional deck list, playing 4 copies of Pokegear and 3 copies of Cherish Ball, much higher counts than you'd expect for most traditional lists. But it does mean that, wow, we're going to see also the Mind Report Mewtwo Stellar Wish combo to guarantee that Welder into hand. So that's going to be a telltale sign that we're going to see some crystal action with Blacephalon here.
We are. KO. That Oricorio is a huge break for Alex. Alex has got a great catcher in hand, which means he can great catcher up the Oricorio and then play Professor's Research to dig for those cards to get the energy onto Zacian, and can use a supporter that isn't Boss's Orders next turn to try and end the game. So that Oricorio going down is huge for Luca.
And look at this, not even a KO. That means it's game.
It is game. Switch, retreat, great catcher.
Wow, it's amazing to see a Zacian actually tank the hit. The Marnie plus Swell combo actually did it for a turn, and putting down this GX was punished immediately by Luca. Easy access to the bench, easy Brave Blade, and yeah, the good old boss game plan does in the end work for ADP Zacian here.
And I think what we've basically seen here is why ADP is so gosh darn good. You look at that matchup on paper and you go, oh man, things like a free energy Heatran gets an easy KO, free energy Reshiram and Charizard gets an easy KO. It's so easy to start running through these Pokemon with those fire decks, but actually it is 3 turns. GX attack, KO a GX, KO a GX. And there was that Oricorio play. Great Catcher is generally only ever really played as a one-of because we're in a Pokemon V and V Max format nowadays. GXs are very much on the way out. They've probably only got a couple of months to go. They've been around for a while and they are getting less and less popular as they get replaced by Vs and V Maxes.
Yeah,
but Great Catcher is still good.
Yeah,
exactly.
Still punishing right there. And wow, the Swell Marnie combo. It's something. It's not really a line that I was expecting. I was expecting to see a quick ball play there, and then just go ahead and grab the Dene and throw it all away. Try and get those sources, because really the play that Luca made was like, cross my fingers, Marnie works. But it ended up doing so, and really gave him an easy route there. So yeah, a nice combination. That one turn of disruption was all it takes, because ADP Zacian takes full advantage. 3 prize card swings if you get a free turn.
And it is just, and trying to play that game, you know, we've seen these fire decks, they need Oricorio, they need Dedenne, they need Crobat. They have these big explosive turns, but you can only have those big explosive turns if you're drawing enough cards to get the pieces to pull off those turns. And that forces you to bench these Pokemon, and that then plays into ADP's hands. And this is the reason why this deck just will not go away. Taking extra prizes and having such a natural attacker, building in Rusted Sword. We haven't even seen Rusted Sword really be played, but Rusted Sword actually now lets Zacian KO those tag team GXs. It really is just, there is a reason it's always either the most played or nearly the most played deck.
Yeah, and that Rusted Sword actually had hidden value that you don't see, really, because both games we saw Heatran GX be the early game play. Pre-Rusted Sword, it would have been Reshiram and Charizard, and that forces even more out of the ADP Zacian player, because it means that the initial Zacian can't just come in and swing and take a response KO for 3 prizes. It actually means you need to push something to the bench a couple times over. It also means that Luca wouldn't have been able to use Mawile quite as effectively. So there's the hidden value of that Rusted Sword, because if they have it, you're just going to get run over. So yeah, we didn't see it really in action, but just the option of it completely changed the way that both players played from turn 1.
Yeah. 1 card in your deck and it forces your opponent to basically not play the way they want to play. And I say this all the time. If your opponent chooses to take options they'd rather not take just to try and slow you down, you're already winning that game. You start that game already ahead.
That's one thing I love about open deck lists. Both players know exactly what to play against. They know what to keep in and out of range of. And it means that, you know, even as you both sit down to begin the game, you know that you can